أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين سيدنا المحمد المصطفى الأحمد حبيبي إله الأبو القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين. أما بعد، قال الله في كتابه المجيد: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي ربك راضية مرضية. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. May I begin by extending my sincere thanks and appreciation to you all for being with us here today for this gathering in remembrance of my brother, my cousin, Marhoom Humza Muhammad Ali, and also giving you my heartiest congratulations and Mubarakbad on the wiladats of Imam al-Hussein ﷺ, Ghazi al-Amdar ﷺ, Imam Sajjad ﷺ, and Imam Sahib al-Zaman ﷺ. May Allah hasten his reappearance. And the arrival of all of those princes, those moons, those heroes of Karbala that we celebrate in this beautiful month of Shaban. And I really do think, and I reflect so much, that with all of the difficulty and all of the challenge that comes with such a tragic loss and such a young loss, there is also a beauty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I almost see it as the hujjat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the fact that as we come to the period of the 40th and the formal conclusion of that initial phase of mourning, a phase of mourning or a period of mourning that will continue not for 40 days, not for 100 days, but for a lifetime, especially for the close family members. But as we come to that initial 40th, that period coincides with these occasions of joy and these occasions of happiness, and gives us an opportunity to reflect on our own pain and our own mourning in the context of the month of Shaban, and in particular in the context of this being the weekend in which the wiladat of Mawla Hazrat Ali Akbar ﷺ is celebrated. And there's a real beauty in that, and I'm sure I need to go no further, for all of you are far more learned than I am. Can I also thank Maulana Abadi Saab and Sheikh Salim Saab for not only taking their time to be with us today, to be with the family, but also apologize to them for eating into their time, and humbly thanking them for their permission to say a few words. I try not to make a habit of speaking in front of, or reflecting, or offering a perspective in the presence of our ulama, but it is humbling and appreciative that they agreed to the request of my Mamu, Dr. Ali Khurram, to allow me to say a few words today, just remembering and reflecting on that beautiful personality that is and was and will remain my cousin and my brother Humza Ali. 6 weeks ago, we gathered in this same hall, having returned from burying a brother, a son, a cousin, a friend, and a gem of a young man with broken hearts and weary minds, and a young man that all of you remember for different reasons. I heard during my stay in San Jose from so many people about Humza, the community member, Humza, the caregiver, Humza, the person that was always there and ever reliable. And I want to talk a little bit about that, inshallah, this evening very briefly. But I was able to see myself that this guy, this young man, this younger brother that I'd grown up with, who I had all these experiences with through my family relations with him, had so much more in terms of his relationship with the community, his relationship with his friends, both within the community but also outside of the community. And it was very beautiful to see that there were so many people who may not be from our path, or may not be from our faith or perspective, but who felt that it was their duty to be there at SABA on the day of Humza's janazah, to be there at the Qabristan, and to be there with the friends and the family members of their dear friend. Then and now, my mamu, my mummy, my cousin, sister Fatima have honoured me by asking me to speak on behalf of the family, and it is an honour that I think I am far from deserving of, worthy of, but it's their love and their kindness that they ask me to reflect today with you, as they did at his Soya Majlis. And we are very blessed that in our family, and this is something that I sat there and listened as other aunts and uncles reflected as well, we're very lucky that we have a very strong family unit. and we have many people in our family who are like extended parents to us. Humza was someone that would spend a lot of time in Minnesota with my Ali Mamu and Zara Mami, his Dao and Dai, as he would call them. And I too have had that honor of spending so much time, and he too had that connection with his purpose, with his wider family, with us living in England, where despite being cousins who are separated by thousands of miles, be it here in San Jose, be it on the East Coast, be it in the Midwest, or be it in England, in Pakistan, our cousins in Islamabad and in other parts of the country, we've always had a bond between us, which has been really beautiful, and we've always had a very special relationship with our elders, our mamus, our mamis, our khalas, our pupos, our chachus, all of our abayas, our extended family members. And that has allowed us all to really grow up in a very special family unit with an abundance of love, but also with an abundance of wisdom and sincerity. And that really shone through in the way in which people remembered Humza and the way in which people came together from all parts of the country a few weeks ago now to remember Humza. And that makes it only more humbling for me to be asked to speak on behalf of that huge and fantastic family unit. And I know I can't do justice to Humza, but I also at the same time sit here feeling like he'd have a smirk on his face, thinking that Musa's trying to sum up all these thoughts in this way for all of you. And that brings some warmth to my heart. The past 6 weeks have been a whirlwind of emotions for all of us, especially for my mamu and my mummy and for Fatima. And I can't even begin to imagine what they are going through, have been through, and will go through. The reassurance for us is that they're surrounded by so many people, their own cousins, their own extended family, but also their community who you are all members of. And the ulama in the area have also taken so much time to spend with them and be with them throughout Humza's journey and in the journey after Humza has gone on to the next stage of his journey through this majestic creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We've cried together, we've mourned together, we've laughed together till our eyes watered. Something again that we all as cousins in particular really felt that Humza would want us to sit there and remember the times that we had together with him that were very happy and were very full of joy and full of pleasure. Even if our adults did rightly remind us on many occasions that we were there for a very somber purpose. But no doubt, again, I'm sure the kind of guy that Humza was, he would have sat there and he would have felt that this is how I want to be remembered. And I'm going to come to a hadith in a moment that for me really echoes that. Throughout his life, Humza was a source of calm, he was a source of strength, he was a pillar for those around him. Whether it was encouraging his sister to be the shining star that we all know her to be, encouraging her to achieve everything that she has achieved and be everything that she is and aspires to be, or it was supporting his friends, it was supporting his relatives, it was being there for family and near ones far afield. He was always there for his people. He was a true loving gentleman with, I would say, the safest and most full heart that I've come across. We witness from our small village here in England, where I'm sitting at the moment, we are the literal definition of bindles. We live in a village in the middle of nowhere in England. Everyone thinks we live in London, which is fantastic, but the reality is we're surrounded by fields. With a window into that pride, especially with my Nanabu and Nanima, who regularly travelled back and forth from America, Pakistan, and England, to be able to witness as Khuramamu and Dairamami was so full of joy as Humza excelled first at school, then through his college years, his university years, as he graduated, becoming a young man, entering into the world of work, and they really were full of positivity for this young man. Humza was only a couple of years younger than me, 2 years younger than me, and that in itself was a very humbling experience and is a very humbling experience. But it also means that I never forget all of our different interactions we had through our childhood, and in particular in the early 2000s when he visited England at my parents' house just down the road from here, and he and I were having an argument, as cousins do, about how as he as the younger was playing a game that I felt was a very serious game and needed to be treated with the utmost sincerity, as English people do, and he felt actually this was a good opportunity to smash a few things together and have a bit of fun. And my darling Khurram, as he always does, was sitting there trying to keep his son happy but also keep his nephew happy and appease and keep the peace. And that's so so unique about this family. Whether it's Daira Mami, whether it's Fatima, whether it's Khurram or Hamza as well. These are people who go out of their way to help others, who go out of their way to be kind to others, and who go out of their way to assist others, even if it's at their own personal loss, detriment, or sacrifice. And that's the kind of people that they are. His parents, his grandparents, my Nana Abu and Nanima, his Dada Dadi, also his Nano who travelled over from Pakistan to be with the family. They are people who kind of exude these behaviors, and you see it across the family, this quiet, humble, hard work that Hamza very much embodied, without a desire to be recognized, without a desire to be credited, showing up throughout, being there, as I say, and in a unique way, never trying to be the center of attention. That is and was and will remain the Hamza that we all remember. Even in as far as, trying to make his baby sister laugh when they were very little, showing up for family, even through to the very end of his own life. He spent his life being consistent in caring, consistent in being gracious, consistent in living life to its fullest, even when life was at its most difficult. And I think few people can ever and will ever be aware of or cognizant of what he endured and the extent to which he traversed difficult paths. In those years of illness, treatment, surgeries, interventions, the roller coaster of emotions that comes with a diagnosis like Hamza had, he would still go to Costco to buy clothes for our cousin who just had a baby on the East Coast. He would still make time to pick up the phone and drop a text to his cousins here in the UK. He would still get up and be there when we came to visit him and spend some time with him, despite everything that he was going through. Even in the very, very few days I spent with him in San Jose in my trip at the early part of last year, while he was receiving active treatment and we were sitting on the ward, we were still having a laugh, we were still chatting about what we could be doing, and he was telling the nurses all about the plans he had for the 2 or 3 days that I was in town. And that's Hamza, that's who he was. And I think something that maybe his own family, I haven't really spoken to him about, but that came to my mind as I was sitting there thinking, what do I say today, was how he's passed that on to a generation who hadn't even met him. So my own son Abbas and my Hamza's other nephews and nieces here in England, Fatima and Ali Hasnan, unfortunately never got the opportunity to meet their Chachu Hamza, but they'd heard so much about him, and they had been transferred an understanding of who Hamza was, that they all know his name, they all know his personality, they all know his character. They all would lift their small hands, Abbas in particular, when we would travel to Karbala to pray for their Chachu Hamza in their own special little ways, in various different forms and different formats. And even when I told Abbas that I was traveling to America on Christmas Eve, when it became clear that it was time for us to be there for Hamza, for Mamu, for Mami and for Fatima, there was an understanding in the mind of the 6-year-old without having to say too much of what that trip meant and what the significance was. Even the very first time I came to America, and I think this is why Humza and I were always so close. I spent that entire trip, it was in the summer of 2009, first time I'd ever travelled outside of England without my mum and dad, so a lot of trust, a lot of faith there in Ali Mamu and Zara Mami, to keep an eye on me and make sure I behaved. It was Humza and I who spent the entire month together. My other cousins were there, working, university, living their lives. Humza and I were the 2 teenagers who were on summer vacations and could stay up all night, going to sleep after sunrise, and basically live the life of true teenagers. And we spent a lot of time on that trip, one-on-one bonding, and that really kind of was there every time then that we met again, be it in the Midwest or on the East Coast or on the West Coast. And it did take these tragic circumstances for me finally to come and spend some time with Humza in San Jose, but I'm so glad that I had that time, and it really did kind of give me an opportunity to spend some really kind of quality time with my brother Humza. This time has been unimaginable for his whole family. As I said earlier, I won't try and put into words what my mum and mummy and Fatima have been going through, but equally I've observed my own mother, Hamza's popo, my mum Wali Sajjad, my mummy Zara in Minnesota, my khala Sugra in Pakistan, who was able to spend some time with Hamza, and all of their spouses, all of their wider family circles, all of us cousins, and the way in which that difficulty has sort of transcended every generation, and there's something there, but also there's something there about community showing up. I said it earlier, my mum's cousins, all of you as members of the wider community have been there throughout. The community in Lahore and in Pakistan, visiting my grandparents, Hamza's dad and dadi, to offer condolences. Hamza Nani traveling from Pakistan to America, to be there in the final weeks and be there at this time has meant that a family's been together to grieve together, but a community has also been there to ensure that there's nothing else the family needs to focus on except for that grieving process. And I think as I kind of draw to a close, one of the things that moved me most was seeing the tears and the reaction of the people who were providing care to Humza in his final few weeks, but also in the months leading up to that. Because they are people who live their lives surrounded by this difficulty. They provide end-of-life care and they provide treatment to people in the most difficult stages of their life. And for them, those positive outcomes are far, far rarer than those realities that our family has gone through and is going through. But for them to have built such a connection with Humza shows what kind of guy Humza was. And for them to have taken solace in Humza and for them to shed tears for Humza and be so heartbroken, hearing about Humza's loss, being speechless, speaks volumes to the impact Humza had on people and the way that he was. They kind of shared with me that he cracked jokes with them, that he would lift their spirits, he would show them a depth of love that was rare and something that they were in awe of. And their grieving was not out of pity or sorrow, but because he had touched them in a way in which few people in that experience touched them. It's difficult to eulogize, to remember, to reflect on the life of your 29-year-old brother, your 29-year-old cousin. Ultimately, the only thing that brings any solace, any little comfort to the heart is that timeless phrase, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Surely from Allah do we originate and only unto Allah will we ever return. That allows the heart to accept or try and accept or take the early steps of acceptance towards the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But grief is part of that, and one of the things that I've been really touched and reassured by is the availability and the readiness for space to be given for grieving and for that positive approach to be taken to grief, which has been so reassuring. Because and my family knows well, and those who know me know that I spent many of my early years in depth and ingrained in reading about Karbala and the literature of Karbala and the Maqtal of Karbala and the event of Karbala. And it's been a real area of solace and power for me in my own life. And one of the things that I reflected on to my relatives when we knew that this time was coming was that Imam Hussein, despite everything that he saw and despite everything that he knew and despite the fact that he, as Masoom Imam Waqt, was aware of what awaited his son, he still grieved at the moment of separation, because the separation, even for that short period until he himself would rejoin his son after Asr, that short separation was still so difficult and still meant so much. And for me, that's why it's so important that we never move away from those opportunities to grieve and we never belittle that grief. I said at the beginning that I wanted to share a hadith, and I wanted to finish with that hadith, and that is from Mawla Kainat Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib, in which he says so eloquently and beautifully as only Mawla Amir could: live amongst people in such a manner that if you die they weep over you, and if you are alive they crave your company. I can think of few people in my life and my experiences who are more true to these words than my brother, my cousin, Marhoom, Humza Muhammad Ali. Can I please ask you to recite Surah Fatiha for his soul, for the soul of all of your marhumeen, all of our marhumeen, and all of the marhumeen of the mu'mineen and mu'minat around this world. But before it, the loudest of salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajil farajahum.